As if Joe Biden hasn't shown us enough examples of him being a bilious gas bag, before he leaves office, he's emitting one more energy diktat that will cause us major problems. It's a new tax on methane. It's purportedly being forced on Americans to stop the boogeyman of, you guessed it, anthropogenic so-called climate change. And it's another reason one justifiably can say he and his climate cult ilk don't care for our best interest, don't care for the U.S. Constitution, and don't care for truth at all. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. You know, for years, international climate cultists, known by some as grifters, have pushed unfounded, baseless fears of apocalyptic temperature increases due to an ever-increasing, never-proven list of purported human activities that, curiously, they tell us they have to control through edicts, limits, taxes, and government subsidies of wasteful so-called alternatives that, again, curiously, politically connected interests just happen to adore. Now, perhaps as a metaphor to the whole stinky, corrupt, insulting line of abuses, Joe Biden has left a real stinker in the room. He just imposed a giant tax on methane. Well, yes, Mr. Biden revels in his sports car and, of course, has jetted around the globe much more than most people ever will in their entire lives. He's so hypersensitive to the boogeyman that he and his colleagues in the cult want to push onto your scare screens. He just pumped out a tax on gas that, like CO2, has not been proven to be pushing the world to a fiery temperature tantrum. That gas, of course, is methane, which not only is formed naturally to such a large degree that it would be virtually impossible to stop that formation without impoverishing the globe, without stopping most plant growth and decomposition, and without exterminating many animal species. Well, methane also is the byproduct of numerous productive activities that, of course, human beings find worthwhile. Activities like energy provision that vastly improves our lives without much of a downside. And, of course, the way in which Mr. Biden's green goons are imposing the tax is shifty through assumptions that the feds can somehow regulate gas, oil, and agriculture, and through a set of terms that people, well, they shouldn't accept. But of course, sometimes they do, especially in pop media. Well, someone different in pop media, Fox News' Alec Schemmel, reports on this. Quote, "The new tax was born out of Biden's sweeping climate legislation passed by Congress known as the Inflation Reduction Act, which included a waste emissions charge provision. Although the waste emissions charge was mandated by Congress, the Biden administration had discretion on how tightly to clamp down." End quote. Ah, yes, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. You remember that one from 2021, that pile of anti-constitutional pork and mandates? That would be the $1.2 trillion spending frenzy that didn't reduce spending at all, but instead increased federal handouts, including $369 billion to so-called green handouts. Yes, and of course, the need for more money from the Federal Reserve, well, that, yeah, caused the Federal Reserve to inflate the money supply and bid up prices in the market. Wonderful. Yeah, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act that Biden recently admitted was misnamed because even Joe realized in a moment of clarity that it was a massive pork package. And, of course, the wasteful emissions charge? Well, waste is relative, and free markets incentivize people to determine for themselves what is a wasteful portion of their investment, how much of it to handle, and whether or not other people's waste harms their own property and life. And that latter portion that I mentioned, that's key. that is part of the key behind all of this. You see, real human beings aren't suing each other over methane emissions, meaning that no price has actually been determined for the waste of methane and any harm it might cause to other people. That's right, no price other than arbitrary government numbers created to suck money from productive people. Writes Schemmel, quote, "The fee will start at $900 per metric ton of methane emitted over a specific performance level during 2024. In subsequent years, the fee will increase. In 2025, it will grow to $1,200 per metric ton. In 2026, it will increase to $1,500 per metric ton. Meanwhile, each subsequent year after that, the fee will continue to rise, according to the EPA." End quote. Yes, according to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, that unconstitutional Nixon-created bureaucracy that claims control over not only our land, but the water on virtually everyone's private property and even the air. And MRC-TV readers and viewers might be familiar with a disastrous analog to the cost of methane we've been discussing here. That is that Biden is telling people to pay for a cost of carbon. Yeah, I've gotten it right about that. As it is with methane, carbon dioxide not only is not proven to be driving some kind of warming apocalypse, CO2 serves many purposes in the naturally occurring systems of plant and animal life on Earth. Schemmel also notes that Steve Malloy, a fellow at the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute, observes that the tax on methane, yes, it will benefit certain big oil companies while hurting smaller companies. Quote, "It's because all these regulations cripple the competition," Malloy said. "Taxing the oil industry, big oil, is going to be all for that." End quote. And, adds Schemmel, quote, "North Carolina Republican Representative Greg Murphy, who was endorsed by Citizens for Responsible Energy Solutions during his bid for re-election this year, echoed that going after the oil and gas industry with this latest tax will serve to raise costs and prevent investment. Thankfully, this insanity will end in January," Murphy said. President-elect Donald Trump has suggested he would repeal many of the green energy initiatives implanted within Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. End quote. And of course, even though many perspicacious Americans might like to see the EPA completely eliminated so that the U.S. government not only claims less overall power to tell people how to live, what to eat, how to travel, how to heat their homes, and many other things, and of course, so that the feds more closely adhere to their disregarded Constitution, at least there is that glimmer of hope, that scintillating hope that Donald Trump and his new EPA under nominee Lee Zeldin mercifully will give us a few years of relief. The fact that we have to hope for relief from federal overlords, well, that ought to tell us a few things. Thanks for watching, one and all. Please like and subscribe. Find us on Rumble, where they don't censor us. Find us, of course, on YouTube, where, yes, they are censorious. And find us all the time at MRCTV.org. That's MRCTV.org, where you can see what the whole team is doing. While you're there, check out the MRC Store, and please consider donating to the Media Research Center. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter/X, and if you want to find me on Gab, I'm at Gardner Goldsmith on Gab, and on X, I'm at Gard Goldsmith. Thanks so much for watching. Please share the videos. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.